Hello, YouTube! Welcome back. Well, when I say welcome back, I mean welcome back to Tower of God manga recaps. So it's been like a year since I've done this recording of any video related to the Tower of God manhwa. If you haven't seen it, please go and watch that video. It's the only other video with any kind of views on my channel, but it recaps the first four arcs of the Tower of God manhwa. I love how much Tower of God love there is going around and it's emerging as a community with the launch of the anime. And I did review the first episode of the anime, pretty late, pretty slow on it in all regards, and especially all my, I shouldn't even say contemporaries, the people I look up to on YouTube have already talked to death about those episodes and are recapping it really well. So I might do those, I might stick with those, I'm not sure, but I'm going to probably stick with the manhwa content because that's what everybody has been loving on and keeping me inspired to get back into this for. Again, you'll probably notice that first video I made was like a year ago. So it's dated and I'm in my old apartment and the lighting's not great and it goes on for a long time. But it does cover all four arcs all the way up to the beginning of Crown Game. And if you're fucking loving the anime right now and you just can't wait and you just want to know what's happening, or slash you've read those chapters and you just want to talk about it, please fucking go check out that video. Go give it a watch. Give it a like. Give this video a like if you like what I'm about to say here. But so this is going to be the second part in this probably very long series. There's about 500 odd chapters of Tower of God to get to, and I'm gonna fucking do it. I'm gonna try and recap them all for your benefit and talk along the way and give my insights without spoiling too much, but add a bit of a rhythm. So that's what I'm gonna try and do on this channel. So we are starting at Crown Game, more specifically chapter 15 or episode 15 as Sui likes to do it, and still in season 1. So what I like to call this chapter is Anak Wrecks House. So at this point, after all of the events of the last couple of arcs, it's become really fucking apparent who the major players are in terms of this floor of test candidate selection, regular selection. Bam is just getting through on the brilliance of Kun, and Kun is being established as one of the most interesting side characters of all time, and along with Rak, who's just also kind of going along with Kun's brilliance at this point. Sorry, thirsty work. But at this point, a lot of the stuff that Anak's doing and all of the team members are doing, it's just starting to get propelled and accentuated, and this is the chapter that really just solidifies that. I'm not going to go over it too much. You can read it yourself. It's not an intention to do chapter by chapter reviews here. It would take too long. There's too much plot to get through. As I said, I've got 500 odd chapters. So please read all this, but please leave comments. Obviously, I'm going to massively skip over some of the most incredible moments, all of the movements, some of the fight choreography. It's good at this point. It's not great. Sui will get better at that, and I hope the anime really does that justice. But it's really just Anak sitting like a fucking boss on a throne with a crown, with her fucking green April, just dispatching or at least keeping people at bay while she dictates. And just so you guys know what Crown Game and the concept of that game is, again, you'll have read it, but it's basically so the person... It's capture the flag, or king of the hill. It's king of the hill, that's what I should call it. So you sit with the crown on your head in the throne, and you get the most points for as long as you stay on that throne, and you win if you are sitting on that throne at the end. So then everyone's really just assessing how to approach Anak in the next episode. And there's no great bright ideas, but they basically decide that maybe the best way to go about it is to accentuate and not accentuate, they should kind of form a circle and form a bit of an attack strategy, because clearly everyone working as independents isn't going to budge this at all. There's still also then that fights break out over the rest of the throne room, because obviously Anak's still a part of the cell, so there are people who want to take out at least her support characters in this context. Then we get some of my favorite paneled components of these series of chapters, which is just we finally get the episode where pause. All right, cool. Episode 17. And this is where Laurie wakes up. And like Laurie is such an interesting character, especially when you find out more about his family and where that goes and what happens. Um, but what's very specifically interesting about him is he's the first real introduction to being a wave controller. And look, I'm going to kind of be pretty liberal here in terms of like character arc. So if you want absolutely no spoilers for the anime or the manga at all, then A, kind of why are you here? But more importantly, like just kind of, I will kind of dip in and out of lore and background and like plot progression. Which will be interesting for those of you who want to kind of keep compelled through this story, and there's a lot of story to divulge in. But it means I will kind of touch on things and give you more information than you might necessarily want. So you have been warned. Cool. And then so Laurie wakes up. And yeah, the reason why being a wave controller is so interesting is this is actually the role in terms of the formation of teams that BAM is ultimately going to adopt, which is a wave controller. So we get a lot of cool, like, epic build up for that. And basically, it is the magical MacGuffin of this series is Shinsu. And we talked about Shinsu a lot already. We talked about BAM passing through the wall effectively unfazed by a Shinsu barrier, and also the ability to manipulate a Shinsu kind of being a special trait. And we know at this point that BAM's kind of rules of engagement around Shinso based on that wall test as he plays by a different set of rules. As where Laurie, who wakes up, who's the guy who's been snug as a rug in a big duvet for the first part of this series, finally wakes up and emerges and basically states that he is a capable enough wave controller and his manipulation of the magical substance of Shinsu is strong enough to at least placate and defend off the other regulars so that they have an opportunity to take the crown, which is very cool because we finally get someone else being an established force and are capable of trying to challenge Anak. And what's crazy about Anak and also BAM, but more so Anak at this particular juncture, is she has one of the 13-month series. So in that regard, like she is already top tier in terms of this regular group. And really, she is top tier as far as regulars, period. So the fact that someone is competent enough to at least challenge her in sort of prowess and combat is fucking exhilarating. And I think they'll get it to all of this in the anime. I assume it's 24 episodes of the anime, but I'm not certain about that. I reckon they will get probably past Crown Game. My guess is they'll try and clear all the floor of test in terms of the anime content, by the way. And the floor of the test is most of basically season 1 of the anime. So if they storyboard this exactly with the manga paneling, and they're making a pretty good effort in the anime to keep a pace of this, I think they'll cover most of this content. Anyway, so Anak jump slashes, he's trying to fend off Laurie's attack. Everyone is spooked, especially Hats about the power of Shinsu. Everyone kind of who has grown up in the tower, which is 90% of the regulars in this in the Flora test competition, know about the properties of it and what it can do and how powerful of a force it can be, especially if it's in the right hands of the right manipulator of it, or the correct wave controller, I should say. So it effectively works to the extent where it creates a large enough diversion to put everybody on edge, and it still manages to beat back the charge by Laurie's teammates, whose names don't matter, while they grab the crown. Well, go for the crown, but Anak is too good, too quick, has too strong a reflexes, and is basically able to manipulate away from it. And then we really just go into wave after wave, coordinated attack after a coordinated attack in a vague attempt to try and take the crown from Anak. And what's interesting though is they're still on the periphery. So Anak interacts with them, realizes what the the Black March is that BAM is holding. Is also obviously extremely interested in terms of how it came under his possession, especially given the circumstances and what we find out to be the events that allowed Anak to be in possession of the Green April, which we will get to. And with that, wants to do something which, funnily enough, very few rank as hell fucking just people in this series have ever done, which is take possession of 2 monthly series. And Anak doesn't know this. She doesn't realize the ramifications of this if BAM had allowed her to take possession of it. Obviously, he refuses. But This would have sent Anak like immediately insane. And events in season 4, which actually transpired not that long ago, maybe in the last year and a half or so, we actually saw Yuri, so the ranker or the top ranker who gave Bam the Black Marsh to begin with, be in possession of both. But anyway, so basically it's this massive foreshadowing of events to come in the future, because it's a Princess of Jihad, or supposedly a Princess of Jihad, because everyone's under the impression at this point that Anak is. She kind of is, she kind of isn't. She is, but not through the means by everybody else typically being a princess. We have already met a princess at this stage as well, which is Androssi, who we'll talk to more in the later events. But Anak kind of is for purposes of the fact that she can manipulate the Green April so successfully. And you shouldn't be able to do that unless you were somehow had the blessing of Jihad. Cool. So I'm up to episode 21 now. It's still Crown Game. And basically there's the emerging of the second round of contestants, having once Anak has won the first round and having exchanged dialogue with Kuhn and Bam and Rak, having dominated and won the game, she proposes a bet. And that bet is to try and win the Black March. Do you want to pause? And look, Bam doesn't want to take the bet for obvious reasons, especially because Yuri gave it to him, so he refuses initially. But Rak and Boom manage to convince him through wonderful character means of doing so. It's just very Rak and very Kuhn. Kuhn, in terms of his ability to have supreme confidence in himself is probably a good way of describing Kuhn. And for Rak, just being the Wraithmaster that he is. So they accept the bet in the terms of engagement. Cool. And then so the second round of the Crown game begins, this time with the main cast participating. So they move. This is actually where you get to see some of the most physically and dexterity related, the most supreme strength and dexterity related feats from Kuhn. Unfortunately, I'm not going to say unfortunately, but look, spoilers for Kuhn. He because of his supreme intelligence, he ends up taking on the role of a light bearer. And the thing about the light bearer class is it's basically the ultimate support class. It's like white mage with also sort of space and matter manipulation, with also information and kind of coordination. You're basically you're the control nexus for the team, which is fine, but it does mean it tends to sideline him in terms of these kind of feats. So if you're expecting Kuhn to become some kind of badass, at least physically in terms of combat, which from this season you're kind of getting the impression he at least has the aptitude for, that doesn't really pan out, or hasn't panned out yet. I should probably say he gets lots of crazy cool abilities, and of course his intellect and his genius is kind of on display for the entirety of the season as long as he's in the party. And yeah, what's amazing about this particular chapter is it really shows off not only his strength and his dexterity, but his bag of tricks and his competency in all realms in terms of the tower and combative arts in the tower. So even though he ends up becoming a light bearer, I always kind of wish, and I'm fairly certain Sui will explore the other capabilities of his character, because from this you almost get the impression with his ability to use his briefcase as not only an inventory or an expanded inventory, but also as a shield, along with his dagger, which we know a lot about, and you're learning more about in the anime as we speak. And so look, Kuhn just kind of dispatches everyone and they win, because none of the other combatants in their particular round of the Crown game are capable of competing. So Bam is sat on the throne with the crown at the end, looking like a bit of a naive boss, and Rak very proud of the little tri-cell they've created and move forward with. And so the next round of the Crown game begins, and we don't, at the initial impressions, is we don't really know anyone in this particular game. No one here has really been made an example of in any of the previous competitions on the floor of tests so far. However, we do get this sick scene of this person in black spandex with a very creepy, bejeweled eye just taking people to town with a staff. And then we see my favorite character in the series, Androssi, for the first time. Because She is supreme. Anyway, and what we then proceed to have happen is with them busting into the crown game, they basically finally give Kuhn and Bam a test, because Kuhn at this point is of the position that they've wanted. They've dispatched everyone. There can't be anybody else coming in. Nope. Because late entries, or apparently continuous entries, as the crown game round continues. And Bam is basically completely dispatched, basically through the coordination and work of this individual with the staff, in support of Androssi and Rachel. The latex bejeweled individual from the other team with a spear actually goes to attack the incoming threat, which she perceives to be as Rachel, who's in the hooded figure at this point, and Bam instinctively jumps in to protect her. With the crown on, you don't understand the events or what transpires in terms of the results of the crown game. From Kuhn and Rack's perspective at this particular juncture, they think they're shoo-ins. They don't think there's enough time left. They don't think there's any way that the other new teams that have joined this particular round can influence their dominance, especially with Rack and Kuhn as a basis of defense for Bam. But because of Bam's move, and because of his entire fixation and fascination with Rachel being the only friend, which you know all about, he jumps in to protect her, ending up clobbering himself and taking himself out of the game, passing out, and we fade to black. The only other thing that polishes off this arc is we jump cut back to Yuri and Evan with a load of people we don't know. What they turned up being is members from Wake Song. Wake Song is basically a anti-jihad, towered structured group. It's hard to say they directly rebel. They just abide by a different set of laws. And they are run by Uruk Mazino, who is the fourth strongest top ranker in the guild, and also the last irregular to have come into the tower since Bam. And that's why Uruk is so interesting and so phenomenal as a character. So Wake Song is basically his faction of the tower. That's a better word for it. And so Yuri has joined up with other members of the Wake Song and want to try and go formally recruit Bam to the to Wingtree once they, which is the translation, to Wingtree once he presumably completes the floor of test. And that ends the Crown Game arc, which I think is where I'm going to wrap up here. I'm going on a bit of a journey here with YouTube. Thank you. I just wanted to say this. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Everyone who watched my first video about a year ago that I made that now, and was subscribing and commenting and really giving love for what I had done here and when I had done it, and how much, as I say, the anime has really propelled people's love and depth for this series. This series is really phenomenal. And I get that high quality animation will put people off. I get it. I know that there's a lot of different series that simulcast, or various other series that will potentially have a better competitive advantage in the West. But as a story, as a series, as a cast of characters, as an incredible world that it exists in, lore, background, plot, and just how much content there is here to get under the skin of, try giving the manhwa a read if you're not already doing so, especially if you're watching this video. But if not that, stick with the anime, because I guarantee it will 100% be in your best interest to do so. All right. Thank you, everybody. Space Budger out. Peace.